but I thought I'd bring a chart.
It's a good one to bring. A ton of momentum,
Now we're stretched on longer, but we got a pretty day set
we
up.
got a really nice setup.
I mean, I know this is a U chart.
Absolutely, it is. Absolutely. And what this kind of looks like for me is you kind of say, okay, we got a pretty clean little high base. I got to respect 160, right? That was that all-time high there. I got to respect it. I got to
respecting previous resistance.
So I got to respect that level. That has to be, a target, right? Be it target 1 or target 2. And now I can kind of look here and I can say, well, I can kind of grab this intraday, low from yesterday and today. We got the 2 tap. I like this type of pattern, basically a 3-bar breakout mark, where it's top, top, top. If I break on, in this case, Monday or Tuesday with the market close on Monday, that would be a go for me. That's going to put me, over 1-to-1 on the risk to reward side of things to that resistance level. If that resistance level is concerning enough that needs to be T2, probably going to have to pass, but this is where we can use that intraday analysis. Probably not a lot to see here technically as of right now for a tighter stop loss, but that could potentially develop. But I think this is an intriguing one if you like the area but don't want to do some stock picking. You want to kind of stay away from whoever it is and just kind of play
it's like Micron.
package.
It's like, what if Micron is the semiconductor company that tanks, but semiconductors continue on fire? I just do not. I don't want to be right on the call, but wrong on the ticker symbol.
Sure, understandable. That's always frustrating. I've been there. It's not
the most fun. It's happened to everyone. It sucks.
I
picked the one consumer staple company that is tanking while the rest of the space goes up. Right?
Yeah. That's no fun, right? That's no fun.
Yeah, no.
But I think and I think you can build something on it. You are, a little bit more consolidation wouldn't be a bad thing either, right? I do think the 3-bar breakout is in play here, but if we are to consolidate, that 9 catches up, even if we don't break out, we do take out these little lows that we're looking at right now, playing into the 9 and getting that springboard could be an option as well. But yeah, I would definitely call this a breakout above this weekly high. I think you do have to navigate 160. That's probably the coldest water, I can throw on it, because everything else is very, very strong.
Yeah, and credit on SMH is it just bleeds so fast. You sell it and it's gone.
It absolutely does. Mark, if I do want to do a little bit of stock picking,
all right, so let's get, what do you got for us, Frank?
So, if I'm looking at it in semiconductors, I think you have an interesting scenario developing here on Taiwan.
That's both you and Tyler. You both love this pattern.
Yeah, well, this one's hard not to love, right? You broke out, you drifted back nice and mellow into that rising 9. If you think about what this looks like on the intraday, looks like we're kind of developing, not a tradable, but a little bit of a pinchy type of scenario, right? Little bit of upward movement. That would be a bounce off of that 50 hourly. Start to see some buyers maybe want to take advantage of it. Unlike the break, right, where I do have to kind of worry about, the 160 as a significant resistance level, because the only thing I know for sure is last time we got there, it's the only thing I know for certain when it comes to SMH. Here, I don't have to worry about that, right? I can target into the previous swing high. I'm probably not trading anything, on a pullback if I don't think it can even make it to the previous swing high. Why would you be trading that pullback? I can't imagine why you would be doing so. And then you still have some room. So this is kind of a catch-up type of scenario, right? You do have some room on Taiwan before you get into those highs. They're certainly behind, the package as a whole, right? Semis as a whole. But I think it does create a pretty clean little entry if we want to do so. I think you're looking at this swing high as your first target. And then, depending on how you want to operate, I think probably 114 to 115 is about where I would be, just kind of looking at this extension here, Mark, without getting too crazy and too fancy.
Yeah, I was going to ask why you picked that.
Yeah, so kind of looking at it in that ballpark, that probably is going to put me a little bit of a couple.
That's a good risk reward type trade.
You are getting a really good risk to reward. And I think if you want to be a little more conservative, and I don't think you mind this personally, I kind of like yesterday's high versus today's high, because again, when you think about what that looks like on intraday timeframes, that means we've gotten through all those moving averages, right, Mark? And so, and that means we've taken out, I don't know how super applicable it is, and it's not going to be the straightest line ever, but you've taken out that downward trend. So I think, you know, as of right now, at least, I think I prefer an entry over yesterday versus today. But that is, again, preference, you know, and I could understand somebody saying, quit being a wimp, Frank, you know, get your order in above today's high, stop loss below today's low, go or don't. Risk to reward is very solid if I want to, you know, do a little bit of stock picking as opposed to the ETF, which I think both make sense.
Yeah, I know they absolutely do. What do you got for us next?
All right, next up, I'm going to go with Riven here. Riven's one that we've talked a lot about, and this is going to be a really
I've heard
good.
you chattering about this one a little bit.
This is one. Well, I've been watching the reversal for a while, but the problem Riven's had all this time while it's been doing this reverse is that 20 weekly. You and I know what a monster that guy can be, right? And I've been kind of waiting for that to kind of fall through. This is a good lesson. You know, you breach it. It tried to get ahead of itself the last couple of days. It's tough, right? That gravitational pull has taken a fart on it as of right now, push through the 20, which is why we, you know, I always say I want to get the close and the follow through, not the breach, especially on this pattern, right? Especially on this pattern. But if I do break out now, right, and I can now actually use yesterday or today's high as where I want to go, especially if I end up closing. I mean, it's right there on the verge, right? So it'll be one we want to take a look at the bell to see if we did close the 20, but right now it looks like it's trying to do so. I think it's probably more likely than not that it does if I had to pick one way or the other. So the taking out of this high would be the follow through off of, we did break, we did hopefully close that 20 weekly. This would be that follow candle. And the thing that's so appealing about these guys, Mark, is you saw that weekly chart. There's nothing until you got a little something at 22, a lot of something at 24 on the weekly, right? You look at the monthly chart, you got a huge window into that 9. So you win this fight, which again, it's not written in stone, it's going to, but assuming that we do win this fight, we get into a really, really nice window that we can work with. Basically, can easily just call it the 200-day moving average, right? As the window. That doesn't necessarily mean it has to be your target, right? But it does kind of present a really nice window of opportunity for us. A lot of clear air if we get what we need to see. If we close that 20 weekly, which it's neck and neck right now, it's very, very close. But if we do, I think we can very easily kind of have two very standout options on the daily chart. One would kind of be below this low, right? This low right here, thinking about it from the point of view that while it was subtle, we popped, we dropped, buyers came in off of yesterday's low with enough ferocity to get us through that 20 weekly. And then they had the wherewithal to jump in next week to show some follow through. I think that's probably the best stop loss location or exit location in my mind, but always like to have options on the daily chart. Could make the case for today's low in that scenario, because this was the candle that propelled us, right? This was the candle that propelled us if we do get that follow through. So that would be a viable option as well. I like a little bit of room here, so you can kind of start to let those longer term averages try to act as support catalyst for you. But we could even, potentially look to go tighter, right? We could look to go tighter. Right now, it's going to line up with today's low, the same as the intraday low, but maybe we run up on Tuesday, consolidate, and then break. That would present us another intraday option. So you're going to have some options on stop loss. I think the big thing, though, here for me, Mark, clean horizontal break, breaking the 20 weekly, which in my opinion is a tough guy to break. That's a big battle. They've been trying really hard for a while and failing, to not really my surprise. But if we do win, we work into a really nice window, risk to rewards, really nice, whether it spreads, picking up shares and then maybe selling some short-term covered calls, playing some cash flow. I think a lot of things can play if we get that. I think that the key thing is you got to get that here. I would be willing to discuss different entry methodologies on Taiwan, yours versus mine. In this particular case, though, I don't think that's up for discussion. We need to close that 20 weekly and we need to see follow through of that candlestick. In my opinion, That's how you have to play those. Those are hard and set rules, whether it's convenient or not for me. But I do like this one. I do like the window.
Yeah, I know. The interesting thing about technical analysis and individual traders is that, it's like when I was saying on Taiwan, that's a Tyler Frank type pattern, right? Like there's so many patterns and there's such a language and story they say. You're going to find chart patterns that you really like as a trader, right? They become your go-tos and this and that. And in these particular market conditions, right, we got things coming off the bottom, we got things that are parabolic, we have things that are starting to get up. You got a lot of different choices of chart patterns out there. It's just a really interesting little stretch. What do you got for us next?
Really fun. An old friend, Lamb Weston.
You brought up Lamb Weston many a times.
There's a good reason to do so. It's been very beneficial. They might be the new Crocs for me, Mark. They might be the new Crocs. Tremendous long-term trend, all-time highs, everything's strong. I mean, they held up within that selling within staples. They held up remarkably well. Right, we saw a lot of selling in staples during this little stretch. Lamb Weston had a bad day and a drift to the 50. Right. Mm-hmm. And a big bounce back to resistance. Makes sense that we sold off there, created that higher low. So we actually have a little bit of a cup and handle type of a pattern going on here. Just need to take out these highs for confirmation. We're at all-time highs. So, I mean, if you're setting up targets, your guess is ultimately as good as mine. But if we look at this on a weekly time frame, we can kind of say, okay, well, what does the trend suggest, right? What is the trend that's been pretty consistent? What does it suggest, right? It does suggest that ultimately this is kind of what this looks like, right? That's not where my target is, but just to get that line set up there, that this is kind of where that looks. I think 120 becomes a very easy target, a big round number, working into that range. Probably takes a little bit of time beyond that, but really ultimately, you want to bet against this trend, Mark? You going to stop eating frozen potatoes?
I learned to stop betting against trends of individual stocks a while ago. Now, every once in a while, I'll lob a call and a parabolic move, right? But
it doesn't. It's tough to guess the tops, right?
It is tough to guess tops. Until you have multi-month consolidation patterns that break to the downside. It really is.
Yeah, until you see stuff. So I do think you can look at this low. Again, I'm making an assumption here that this low is what propelled us through that resistance level and probably could get a 2-to-1 trade just to, that resistance. But I think that would be T1 for me with closer into the 120, 250 to 124. I'd have to do a little more deep dive on it, but somewhere in that ballpark for that secondary target. I'll call it 123.
All right. Sounds good. What do you got for us next?
All right. A couple more here. Fergie Ferg, an industrial play.
I should trade this just because my 9 EMA's nicknamed Fergie.
It is. Okay. Well,
just on principle.
It absolutely it is. Listen, Fergie was and still is awesome. Love me some Fergie Ferg. Also love me some Fergie Ferg here. Nice bounce, right? This pattern, right? Big run. Pull back. This is kind of where we are in like Micron, right? That's kind of why you like it for credits, because we're kind of like right in this phase of the game where you feel like this stuff holds. It just might not be the prettiest hold, right? Well, this was a pretty darn good hold, running back into resistance, ran a little hot, right? Again, looking at the weekly chart here, needed to take a breather, got that opportunity to take said breather. As you can kind of see here, only evidence we have in days gone by of the 150-ish breakout led to something really, really good. Probably not the target that you're looking for a swing trade, but to illustrate the point, we've got lots of room to run. I do think ultimately we're kind of targeting into this area around 164, this old high. This was just a weird earnings type day. I'm going to discount that guy altogether, but should have no problem getting a good solid risk to reward. And again, targeting is not, one size fits all necessarily, right? You may say 160 by, or 163 by 170. I may say something else, but I do think that's kind of first target in that 160 to 163 range, secondary target into that 170 ballpark. Again, you get lots of good stop loss options. You can get below the 9, below the 20, below maybe even below the weekly candlestick. It might be tough if you're looking at that particular trade, but real close. If we wanted to do so. So I love getting stop loss options because I understand not everybody wants to be, as tight or loose as me in any given trade. So I think having legitimate options is always a good play. So Ferg was definitely somebody that caught my mind. I want to shout out Issachar. This was one little pinch that
I like
brought up
Matt. Matt. I might as well be talking to Matt. You two share the same technical brain. Some of these insurance companies have really nice setups.
Yeah, and there's some that are coming, that are more into the move, right? Like AIG and Aflac are kind of moving more. These guys have kind of developed into this little pinch action here, right? And again, they're trying to close that 50 for the first time. And what's pretty cool about these guys, Mark, is if we get that close follow through, we're going to get through that flat. It's not as concerning.
Yeah,
but
these
like to get through
these just smell like opportunity. I mean, you had
through.
Yeah, the financial sector get butchered when the banks started to implode, brought everything down with it, and they've just needed times to work out their demons, right? Work out their demons, and you're starting to see that is a beautiful pattern.
Yeah, this is a really good find, Issachar. Issachar brought it up in the step channel. I saw him, was thinking about him, and I was like, I got to get him now. I got to get him now. But a good look, good look. Got some room to run. I'm just going to be looking at taking out today's high as that confirmation. That does get us through. They are flat. The 200 weekly is flat, but I still like to get through it, right? And of course, that would be more upward movement from that 50 monthly. So another interesting character. And what I got one or two more. So rapid fire, a couple bears here, Mark. An old bearish friend, AAP. Been a good life to bet against AAP. Disastrous earnings. Roll into the 9. This is going to put us in one of those.
Roll into the 9 during a market melt-up that is going to carry a lot of other things, right? I see what you're saying.
Exactly. And it's a cheap risk type of a bear play, which is always good, right? Let's bring this guy up here because we're kind of making the assumption that the 9 pushes us down. We take out this basically 3-bar low, right? From Wednesday, Thursday into today. That takes out that intraday trend. Stop loss right above that high there, which means just coming back to this low. We don't need this to continue to do what it's been doing for a very long time, which is make lower lows consistently, right? We don't need it to put us in a good 2-to-1 trade. I think we can expect it to, right? Again, the trend would suggest, why doesn't it? It's been doing it for a really long time. Maybe this is the time it stops, but it's paid to bet on the trend continuing, right? So really cheap risk type of a trade, looking at these 3 bars right here. And again, thinking about what that would look like on the intraday, you've got the pop, pullback, pop, drift, tried to come up, went sideways, M formation, broke down, right? And take out the trend along the way. So I think that was an intriguing one. And last one here on the bear side, a little bit more pronounced version of AAP, where you had that big pop and now we went really sideways. What have we been doing that at? Where have we been doing that, Mark? Right below that 9, right? That 9 weekly is a pretty tough fellow too, right? So expecting it to fail at that point does make sense. Expecting buyers I ain't buying that close to that 9. I don't know about you, but I'm not doing it at all. So getting that downward movement and breaking out of this sideways range here would kind of give us, I'll grab this one here, would kind of give us the confirmation off of that, pull back in to that 9 on that weekly chart. Not a lot of support because of the way that it moved. Not a lot of support until we get back down to that $10 level, right? So another one of those low risk, nice structured looking bears. If you want to be a little bit more conservative, you can make sure it closes below that 20, but I'm kind of making the assumption that if we break out of this range to the downside, that's happening anyway. So I don't think I need to do anything special to prepare for that. So a little bit of a consolidation break to the downside. Hey, the break to the upside it's theoretically a bullish signal. I just don't think you can trade it being that close to the 9 weekly and the 50 daily and all the other decent looking charts I have out there, but almost a K trade type of scenario, because if it does break, that becomes a lot to the upside. It becomes, not really interested in playing this to the short side at all, at least that pattern that we just discussed. Maybe something new develops, in at that 9 or that 50 daily. But this is kind of one of those, stay in this range, break to the downside, I have interest. Stay in this range, break to the upside, I probably don't.
All right. You are a master at what you do, good sir.
Thank you.
You are a master at what you do. Insurance companies have just been brought up so many times this week. And I'm going to break out that insurance ETF over the weekend.
Oh, there you go. There you go. Don't have to. Yeah. I'll probably go shopping for individuals. I do really like.
You're a trader, right? You stop losses, all of that, right? And
exactly.
It's
different style,
if
right?
it blows up, just. But listen, the one thing about Frank's charts, one thing about our scouting reports is they give me ideas. I find them very, very valuable. I know our pro members do too, and we're going to be hard at work. Finding those trade setups as a collective team for you in the next few hours as we dive into our scouting report meeting, release our scouting reports anywhere between like Friday night and Saturday morning-esque, getting them out before the weekend. But we got a 3-day market weekend this week, Frank. Market's closed on Monday.
Yep.
Market's closed on Monday. We're heading to a 3-day weekend.
To make you want to sell something before the close, doesn't it?
Well, just on principle. Just on principle.